Welcome back, everyone. Today we are going to draw somebody from Reddit. This is the subreddit called redditgetsdrawn, where people post images that they would like to see drawn by other people. So we are going to draw her, and I invite all my viewers and students to post their finished drawings on Reddit Gets Drawn for her enjoyment, we hope. So we're going to start with sort of backing out all the way on this so we can see the gesture. We're dealing with two challenges here. One is that the head is tipped up, the chin is tipped up. You can tell by, let's just analyze this for a second. You see how low the earlobes are compared to the nose and mouth? So the head is strongly tipped upwards. And the other challenge is just the gesture of the hands. We're gonna draw everything here. So let's start by blocking in the head. I'm not working sight size right now. I'm drawing a little bigger than my reference. Just for your information. I'm keeping my reference small so I can see the gesture because that's what I'm focused on right now. Let me lock my focus in there. Okay, so to give myself a little clue about the tilt of the head, I'm going to indicate sort of this upward movement of the chin and the bottom of the jaw, and I'm going to draw a curved line for the eyes, and I'm going to draw a little shadow for the nose way up high, and that sort of just gives my brain some clues as to the angle that she's holding her head. And then we're going to go from the angles of the jaw down to the pit of the neck. We're going to conceptualize the neck as a cylinder. One thing I always like to do with shoulders is I like to imagine sort of where this line would cross the neck if I extended it between the shoulders. If I just extend that curve. So you see it's hitting above the pit of the neck, sort of like that. And I'm going to sort of block in the rib cage, remembering that rib cages are about 2 heads tall. Sternum. The pelvis. She has a sort of feminine figure, by which I mean that the rib cage is considerably narrower than the pelvis, okay? You'd see the opposite on a masculine figure. It looks like the elbows are coming down just about to the level of the external oblique, which is here and here. So I'm going to sketch the angle of the arm and this directional change. Noticing that it's a little different on the other side because this arm's coming forward a little more, so this elbow comes down slightly. It's a little closer to us. And this is an instance where crating would be valuable, I think. So I'm going to just make a little construction line from the head to the fingertips on both sides to help me see these angles. And see how the shoulder stays well inside this angle. And this angle's a little steeper and this one's a little shallower. You see that? Very subtle, just a few degrees less steep on this side than on this side. And we could use a little fractional thinking here. If we know where the elbow is and we know where the tips of the fingers are, we're going to look for the wrist at about a quarter, a little more than a quarter, almost a third of the way down. So if we mark the elbow here, we know the fingertips are here, so the wrist is going to be about a third of the way down, like that. So that's where we're going to block in the hand. Extend the fingertips to that line. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to look for fractionally. This is also about a third of this overall distance. So here's our elbow. 1/3 is about to here. Here's the body of the hand. This is a tricky one because this hand is tilted away from us. So if you think about the box of the hand that we talked about, it's very foreshortened. It's going dead away from us, and then the fingers are reaching up towards that line. So we're going to get into a lot more detail with that later. This is just sort of roughing in the gesture. So I'm going to give a little mass to these limbs now, like this. And I'm kind of skipping right ahead to contour here, which we didn't do last time, but I think you're getting probably more confident in drawing contours of the arms. Plus, a lot of the arms are hidden by the clothing, so. So we want to rapidly get to a point where we can assess our overall effect. So for me right now, that's going to mean blocking in the clothing. Thinking fractionally again, this puffy sleeve thing is a little less than halfway between the forearm and the shoulder. You see that? So here's the forearm, here's the shoulder, a little less than halfway. Same thing on the other side. So we're going to block in this puffy sleeve, go down just a degree or two, then straight across, then up again, and there's the other puffy sleeve. This one is a little higher. This one sags down a little. Right under that, we're going to draw just a little fullness right here. And we're also going to block in the hair. So and I'm going to block in the clothing, the dress where it passes over the hips. And finally, I'm going to do these straps. And I'm even going to shade some of my darks. I'm going to shade the straps. I'm going to shade the hair. First shading. I'm going to shade this wrist thing. And I'm going to do a little cast shadow under the puffy sleeves. And a little cast shadow on the neck. So what that shading, I'm even going to shade a little bit in the eye sockets. So what that shading enables, as I probably tell you every day, is it allows us to see the drawing as a pattern of lights and darks. And as I do that, I can see that this sleeve needs to come out a little closer to the wrist, which means this angle's a little shallower right here. And what just happened is my brain, because I have that information of the pattern of lights and darks, helps me to make corrections. This sleeve also comes out, see closer, here's that dark thing on the wrist. This puffy thing comes out closer to it, so this angle is also a little shallower. You will probably be seeing different corrections in your drawings. The important thing, though, is to use this opportunity to try to make your drawing better. And things really should be clicking into focus because of the halftones. And you'll notice we have a bunch of halftones here, but no details. Not a single detail, just a pattern of halftones. I'm even going to throw the fence in behind her. And at this point, I'm satisfied that I can read the gesture. The overall shapes seem correct, maybe a little slight more fullness here and here. And after I'm comfortable with all these decisions, that's when I'm going to go in and start committing to details. Okay, now the fun part. We're going to really get in close on this face. Okay. So, this is going to be hard, because we're really looking up under the jaw. So we're going to take a couple measurements. Let's look at where the bottom of the chin is, and let's imagine where the top of the skull is, and let's look for the eye line. The eye line is curved like that. Notice it's not in the middle because of the angle of the head. So the bottom of the chin's about here. It's not this top of this shadow shape. It's a little under it. And top of the skull is about here. So my eye line looks to be in about the right place. It's definitely above center. You feel that? I can block in eyebrows. The brows also kind of wrap around because of the angle of the head, like that. Make sure they're kind of moving like that. And here's the line for the bottom of the nose, which does look to be where we expect it, which is centered between the brow line and the bottom of the chin. Maybe a little above center. Well, it really depends where we say the bottom of the chin is. Yeah, it's about centered. Not so. This is the very base of the nose there. I'm drawing this head super tiny. Maybe some of you are doing it a little bigger. I wish I had done my whole drawing a little bigger, but you can see, you know, there's my eraser, so it's a tiny little head. That's why I sharpened my pencil. But let's just leave the nose there for now. And the mouth is about a third of the way down. And also curves downward. It's tough to leave enough room for the philtrum and still have that upper lip be thick enough. But we'll do it. And the way her lips are slightly parted or open, we just need to make this center part of this line a little wider. Okay, let me get rid of the... Okay, so I'm going to lightly erase my nose and draw back in what I see, which is nostril here. I didn't erase it all the way because I wanted to be able to see where my dark is. And now the shape of the ala curving around the nostril on both sides. Those alas are a little too big and dark. These are very subtle plane changes, so we want to use a very light touch here. I'm going to shade along the bridge of the nose very lightly. I already shaded my eye socket a little. I'm going to shade those down a little more. And I'm going to go ahead and commit to these closed eyes now. So that's really just a curved line. They're curving downwards because of the angle of the head. And there's some beautiful halftones happening around the eyeball. See how this shadow gets a little darker so you can read the form of the eyeball despite the fact that the eyes are closed. It's through these little shadow shapes. A little halftone on the other side of the nose. The bridge of the nose is defined by this lightness and a little halftone between the eyebrows. That's the bottom of the brow ridge. Okay. Because of the angle of the head, the cheekbones are lower in relation to the eyes. Cheekbones are down here. Can't really see it on this side. The hair is covering the cheekbone. And here's the jawline. The angle of the jaw is also very low, much lower than we normally find it. It's way down here. Again, because of the angle of the head. And you can see that on me. If I do this, my angle of my jaw is higher. If I do this, it drops way, way down in relation to my mouth. So you all have to resist the temptation now to close this line, because all we have here is a soft plane change. We do not have an overlap. So instead of closing that off, we're going to just do a little more shading to show where that turn is, and then shade the neck a little more. We have a little overlap at the angle of the jaw where it overlaps the neck. That's it. So I'm just noticing the bridge of my nose is a little wide. I'm just going to bring these halftones in a little. And her hairline up here is sort of an arch shape. It might be useful to just look at how much smaller this arch is than the arch of the jaw. There's a real narrowing of her head near the top and a widening at the jawline, which is largely a function of the pose, but partly a function of her actual head. And it's going to be really helpful to drop this earlobe in, make sure it comes down below the corner of the mouth here. It gives your brain a really good clue as to how far the head is tipped. And notice that the hair, because of the angle of the head again, that we don't see much hair on the top of the head. The light here, honestly, is not very good. It seems to be coming from the left, but there aren't clear shadow shapes. It's more just a bunch of halftones that we got to deal with. I forgot to erase my construction line here, so I'm gonna have to shade that again. Not a big deal. And And I'm noticing that you can't see it on this side, but her trapezius muscle comes up a little higher than I blocked it in before. It gives her shoulders more of this downward sloping look. And this darkening of the neck stops right about here at the pit of the neck. And here the hair is draping down over her shoulder. And here it's falling behind her shoulder. Get rid of my crating. I keep making her nose just a little too big. I'm really wishing I had made this drawing a little bigger. It's really hard to draw the nose this small. But that's sort of the vibe we're looking for. It's a little halftone here at the plane change. At the corners of the nose. And this upper lip is a little darker than the lower lip because of the light coming mostly from above. Okay, here's the straps. There's the top of the dress. We already nailed all that stuff down. Here's where the pectoralis muscle overlaps the armpit. It's way out here. And we can see it out here also. Just the very top of that plane change. And a little shading everywhere except the tops of the shoulders, which means she's essentially backlit. That's the challenge we have here, is the backlighting. Okay. Don't get too lost in the detail of the clothing. I'm just sort of killing time here. Not essential for you guys to do. The hair is also backlit, which means it's kind of dark everywhere except that left-hand edge where it gets dramatically lighter, so I may as well try to show where the light is coming from with the hair also. A little lightening on this side too, not as much. Okay. Moving down, I'm going to back out a little. So I don't know what you call this style of dress. I know it looks like it would be impossible to draw. We're going to radically simplify it. What I'm noticing is that there's a sort of ruffled shadow edge along the bottom of the cup here. And I'm just going to draw that shadow edge, do a little first shading, and then draw this seam underneath. And then there's another seam across the top, so casting shadows down into those ruffles. And I'm just going to show that the fabric is kind of pinched along this edge. I'm looking for a pattern here. I'm not copying individual folds. Just sort of trying to get a sense of the pattern. And the same thing happens here at the waist. There's sort of this ruffled edge, which I'm going to do pretty randomly. And then some cast shadows along the seam at the top of the skirt. Just enough to give a sense of what's going on there without getting lost in detail. These sleeve forms are sort of like balloons. They're not as crinkled as the rest of the dress, so this is a simpler shadow edge and first shading. And over here also just a few folds and just a little bit of gathering along the top seam. So yesterday I kind of crossed a line and I couldn't help myself. I'm a little ashamed. I kind of trolled Dylan a little in his comments. Yeah. Yeah. I tried to keep it civil. So he was saying that he did his thing of like, what you're looking at is not a photograph. It's a drawing done the old-fashioned way, hundreds of hours with charcoal pencils. And I just commented like that the old-fashioned artist didn't have photographs to copy, so that really isn't the old-fashioned way, but I'd love to see some of his drawings from life. So it was a very subtle troll. But it is really ridiculous to say that like the old-fashioned way of doing a drawing is to take a photograph of it and then to copy it exactly by gridding the whole thing and copying what you see in all the little tiny squares. Like that's, yeah, that's not old-fashioned. That's a very modern way. That way of drawing was invented in the 1970s with photorealism. No one had ever done it before. And academic artists certainly would spend, 50 50 hours on a drawing sometimes, but not hundreds, because they weren't like drawing in the beads of sweat and the pores and the other things that are really only possible to draw from a photograph. They would do very detailed still lifes, but still not. Yeah, they would put more detail into their still lifes. Okay. This is not honestly my best work. I hope she doesn't mind it too much. Let's work on these hand gestures. It's really my favorite part of the photograph, so let's. So there's two ways into this. One way is, like I said, perspective, like picture the box here, and very appropriate to remind you, like what I was taught by the great teacher Walter Erlbacher, is that the body of the hand is about the same size and shape as a pack of cigarettes. So it's this, or a deck of cards, it's tilted away from you. The other way into this, if you're stuck, is the country idea. So you could just think, you could flatten this shape in your brain and just copy the shape. And I think most great artists do a combination of both. Like, they start out with a kind of perspective idea, and then they flip into like a two-dimensional shape idea. So it's like 2D thinking, 3D thinking to 2D thinking, to 3D to 2D, and then back again, basically. So here's my 2D thinking, where I'm just drawing this shape. And then I'm going to go back to 3D thinking as I try to analyze the forms of the fingers. So there's the body of the hand. I wish someone had told me when I was your age that drawing fingers is like playing chords on a guitar. It's like, after a while, you just get a feel for them, and they're not so awful to draw. They're really frustrating at first. But there's these slight exaggerations that artists naturally make once they know how to draw fingers, like, especially at the tips, the way they bend back a little. You see how the last joint of the finger flips back a little, and that's something you'll see a lot of artists just very subtly exaggerate, and a lot of beginners, instead of exaggerating it, they minimize it, and all their fingers look like hot dogs instead of fingers. So to get some life into the hand, you have to sometimes indulge just a little bit of exaggeration. And what do you think? Is that whole hand like just too massive for the... Yeah, mine's too big. So I got to figure out where I don't think the fingers are too big. We took measurements and everything. Let's see. I think the wrist is a little wider, and that's why the hand is looking too big. Forearm's a little wider. Let's back out and take a look. Yeah, my hand's just like way too big for the head. It may be that my head's a little small for the body too. Okay. Don't worry, if you drew your hand just like I did, I'm not going to take any points off. But what I'm going to do is show you, you see how when you erase something you can still see it there? I'm just going to scale it down a little, and I'm going to go mostly by what I have on the page. I'm just sort of making everything a little smaller. And I think that what I did was I did what a lot of you do, which is as I was drawing the hand, I was only focused on the hand. And I literally zoomed in on that area of the drawing so that I could only see the hand. I wasn't looking at the face anymore, and that's how they got out of scale relationship to each other. So I kind of used the ghost of the hand that I had to guide my redrawing of the hand. And if you're an artist like me who often makes mistakes, that's a good kind of hack to know about. It's like, just don't erase it completely, and then you can refer to what you had there before as you scale down to something a little smaller or bigger. So that feels more appropriate to me. It is a very difficult hand position to get right. And let's try to do a little better on the other one. And by let's, I mean I'm talking to myself here. So the other hand's going to be much easier. And I feel like it's more correctly scaled already in my drawing. So there's the first finger, second finger right behind it, and then the last finger is extended. And here's that slight rise for the muscles of the thumb, and then the thumb is very foreshortened coming out behind that. Because of the backlighting, I'm going to shade everything but that upper edge. And here's the contour of the forearm, the elbow, and this curving up behind the dress right here. Now let's see if I made this hand too big also. Yeah, probably a little. How do you like that? Make exactly the same mistake twice in a row. Yeah, we can add the TR. But I'm going to post this anyway. Just making the fingers a little smaller. Yeah, that works better. Okay, well, you guys keep working on your own from the reference. I'm going to do some radical surgery here and talk to you about what I'm doing. I think I told a couple of you to make the heads a little smaller, and I think I made the head too small. I think you guys were right and I was wrong. So what's happening in my drawings, the face is reading a little bit too small. We measured things, so I think the head's the right size. But I knew I was running out of room between the upper lip and the nose. So let's see what happens if I just put the nose a little higher. See that? And again, I'm being guided by the ghost of the nose I had before. Let's see here. So I'm popping that nose in just a little higher, and I'm raising the eyes just about a 1/16 of an inch, and raising the eyebrows by the same amount. And really simplifying my drawing of the face. I'm even going to drop the angles of the jaws just a little. And this is something we've talked about before, but you'll notice that what I just did was, without actually making the head bigger, I made the face bigger, and that makes the head look more appropriately scaled to the body, I think. And I hope it's useful for you to see me make such terrible mistakes and go in and try to fix them. You have to be willing to erase your work when it's bothering you. So now if I back out again, you can see that it's still not a beautifully drawn portrait, but the face feels more appropriately scaled to the body. one more time on this jawline. This is killing me. The tough thing is the way that the hair is overlapping that contour. Okay, Redditors, that's going to have to do it. I will provide a link in the description so that you can share your drawing with this Reddit user if you wish. And I will try to do better next time. This was not as easy as I thought it would be. Just take a final glance at the side by side. And there we have it. Okay, thanks for watching at home. We'll see you next time.